If your flight plan unfolds as expected, could you take us through when you're going to be doing manual flying and who's going to be doing it? And also if you do plan to test this backup mode that you were describing?
Yes,
Thanks.
good question. So we'll get launch vehicle, the rocket separation, and then we will circularize our orbit. We will have another burn that will get us in a position to rendezvous with space station, and after that second burn, that NC burn, we will do some of the manual tasks that we have on the plan. Operational crew capabilities is what we call them, OCCs, and in that is a fair amount of manual control, manual flying, manual checkout. For instance, let's say that you lose your computer. Your computer has the knowledge of where the sun is, where the stars are, where the satellites are, the tracking satellites that allow us to bounce our communication. So if you lose your computer, how do you point your antenna at the satellite? We're going to test it in this backup kind of mode. We're not going to go into backup mode, but we're going to test that capability. How do you point? Our solar array is basically on the back of the spacecraft. How do you point? We call it tail sun. How do you point your tail at the sun if you don't have a computer? Well, we're going to go through and we're going to test that. You have to do it manually. I'm going to do a lot of that. We've got 2 test pilots on board, so at some point, as we're going uphill, I'm going to get out of the left seat, Sunny's going to jump in the left seat, and she's going to do some of the manual tasks that we have in the plan. Once we dock or get on the docking axis at space station, there'll be some manual control with a target, which will be the space station, and we'll use the target of the space station to do some manual maneuvering, basically checking out the spacecraft to make sure that it flies as it is intended to fly, that the inputs and the response you get is as expected. Hopefully it matches up exactly with the simulator, and if it doesn't, all that data is going to be downlinked, our knowledge will be shared, and they'll tweak the little systems they need to make the simulator operate like the spacecraft. So that's going uphill. Coming downhill is when we actually go into the backup mode, so the backup mode, just very briefly, I put a control into the the right-hand controller. It sends a signal to the computer. The computer goes, okay, they want to do this. Send some a pulse, have that jet pulse, that jet pulse, that jet pulse, that jet pulse, but based on basically an algorithm. In backup mode, we don't have a computer. We have an integrated propulsion controller, which is a computer within itself that deals with all of our ordnance event, our parachutes coming out, and all of the jet firings. And in those IPCs, in integrated propulsion controllers, is a lookup table. So I put a control input into the RHC, the right-hand controller, and it goes to the lookup table and just basically says, fire those 2 jets. And it does that. So it's almost direct control to the jet through this IPC. And we are going to test all of that, to include firing the OMAX, which are the bigger jets we have to do our deorbit burn, our circularization burn, and all of that. So that's all flowed into the process and the plan throughout all aspects of the flight. I think I covered it all.
Yeah, you covered it all.
Yeah, got it all. It's pretty much in a nutshell, without going into the nitty-gritty details.